This is not for people who have never trained before. I want to address those who, like me, took karate lessons as a youngster and maybe eventually became teachers themselves. Chances are, like virtually everyone else in the modern age, you learned your stuff in a class with other beginners. You put on the official uniform. You bowed in to enter the class. You followed what the instructor said, and you marched up and down the floor with the other trainees. And after hundreds and hundreds of repetitions over time, you got the hang of the movements. And then there were more advanced movements to learn, and the process started all over again. You learned them in a certain order. And every so often your progress was checked and you were tested. The color of your belt changed. The place where you stood in line with the others changed. Your rank was registered with some central authority, and you got a certificate stating that, yes, you were now that good. And every once in a while, your whole group would go to a big training with a lot of other people and learn from someone more famous than your teacher, and you'd come back with new friendships and you would practice the new things you learned. And so passed the years. Now let me ask you, did you ever take music lessons? I'm going to say piano, but it could have been guitar or saxophone. What was it like taking those lessons? Were you in a large hall with a dozen other students sitting at pianos, all striking the key at the same time? I don't know if piano lessons like this exist, but I think it's likely that you sat at the piano next to your teacher and played with the teacher correcting as you went along. And how you performed was dependent on how much you practiced when the teacher wasn't there. You would have one-on-one instruction, and you learned to play more and more complex pieces. Finally, you were able to locate the right key on the piano to make exactly any note you heard in your head, and you could improvise on the instrument. You were no longer playing notes from memory. That is exactly how karate was taught before the modern age. You sought out a teacher. He accepted you. He showed you techniques in his garden. Maybe there were a few other students, but not many. There was no charge for the instruction, only the expectation that you would be diligent in learning and behave yourself. There was no uniform. Nobody had a black belt. There was no national organization to issue you a certificate. Like playing the piano, the evidence of your skill came entirely from how you could perform, not your rank. I've always been fascinated with karate history. And years ago, after 22 years of practicing what I would call institutionalized karate, I went in search of the old ways. I found a teacher who accepted me, and I relearned everything. He allowed me to sleep in his dojo, which was in his house. In those days, I trained 9 hours a day. It was a sort of crash course in learning old-style karate. He gave me 3 lessons each day, and in between training sessions, I not only cleaned the dojo, but I scrubbed his toilet and bathtub like I heard a good student would do in the old days. At night, we would drink sake together and talk about karate history and philosophy. We both hated the politics in the karate world, and we talked about it often. It was everything I ever wanted and never got in the previous 22 years. For a visual image, picture leaving the bad guy's dojo in the Karate Kid movie and going to learn from Mr. Miyagi. And for the 30-odd years since then, my vision of training has been different. However, Since Sensei wanted me to open a dojo in the US to carry on these teachings, and because there are financial realities to doing that, I caved to the modern requirements, mostly because Sensei said, you have to do the standard form to survive. So we had to have kids classes, and I had to teach them a kiddie form of karate. And with the competition from other schools, we had to be a little more indulgent with our adult members than I would have liked. We didn't teach a lot of the really deadly applications. We belonged to the international organization that my teacher belonged to, and we went as a group to their yearly seminars. We played the game. I never operated the dojo as a business, and I have never taken money for teaching in all these years. I don't have any animosity for those who do. If you can make a good business out of it without teaching crap, my hat's off to you. I have found that in America, at least, I don't really know about Europe, but people become martial arts instructors for ego. That is, they often suffer from low self-esteem. And the titles, the pomp and circumstance of the traditional trappings of the martial arts make those people feel special for the first time in their lives. Now, as a goofy 13-year-old with low self-esteem back in the 60s, I could attest to the fact that there isn't a better path toward self-confidence and self-mastery than karate training. There has been nothing, absolutely nothing in my life that has contributed as much as karate training. And that's why I was compelled to teach classes and pass on that good fortune. I've always been looking for that next goofy somebody with no confidence and transform his life in the same way. And I was committed to doing it without that person being subjected to a lot of nonsense, grandstanding by insecure people, petty jealousies in the dojo, and becoming another robot herd follower to pay dues to a national organization and be compared with the national average. And I especially did not want anyone learning a lot of stuff that doesn't work very well for self-defense. I'm sure some of you are like me. That kind of frustration takes its toll, doesn't it? I stopped teaching formal classes years ago. I was tired of having one kind of karate in my head and having to teach another. And my self-esteem for the past 40 years has largely come from my career, so I didn't need to keep teaching karate in order to be someone special. But I still had the desire to provide something beyond what was available elsewhere. This is it. The Karate Hacker Common Sense Self-Defense course is for the individual who is after the good stuff and maybe isn't suited to the typical structure of karate study. If you've been training for a while and are dissatisfied in some way, I understand. If karate has been a part of your life for years and now you're older and can't do all the things that you used to do, I get that too. I really get that. By the way, what we're doing applies to whatever style you studied. You know how going to a vocational school prepares you for a career, while college gives you courses for a career, sandwiched in between a lot of other stuff in the name of a rounded education? Oh, and costs a whole lot more? You may have never thought about it, but vocational schools are forbidden by law to grant degrees. So they prepare you for careers where it doesn't matter if you don't have after your name. If you want a white-collar job, you have to take a bunch of courses that don't have the slightest thing to do with how you're going to be making a living. Well, I'm not telling you anything you probably don't know. I see the Karate Hacker Common Sense Self-Defense course as the vo-tech of martial arts. No stupid humanities courses, just what you need to know. It prepares you for violent encounters and doesn't make you suffer through any of the fluff. Sure, you won't have a degree from a prestigious university, but I bet you'll be able to wipe the floor with people who do, so who cares? If you are a seasoned martial artist who wants something scaled down to practice so you can still contend with the young guys, I have something for you. Or if you know people who have never trained at all and want a way to protect themselves without committing to a lot of time, please share this with them. Thanks for listening.